Masterclass. It's called Awaken Your Power Within. And we have a very special guest today. And as you know, when people come in, I'll let them come in. If you're watching this on replay, we want to say hello as well. And that you will be getting, if you're watching this on YouTube, then you're seeing it on replay. But for those of you who are here and want to watch it again, you'll be getting the link within 24 hours. Okay. So our special guest today is Dr. Thorin Gault. He is one of my mentors. He's been doing this work or similar work to me for 25 years, maybe
26 years.
26 years. Oh my goodness, that's crazy.
It is crazy.
That's amazing. Yeah, because this year I think we're going, next year will be my 20th. So that'll be 20. Wow.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. And some of you guys have always asked, where do you go when you go to Cornwall? I go to Thorin's office to help him out.
And we always appreciate that. And the patients are always happy to hear that you're coming too.
Oh yes, I love going there because I've been going for so many years that it's like a second home for a practice of mine. All right, so today we're going to talk about awakening your power within. There's different types of power. There's circumstantial power, so circumstances outside of yourself affect your life, and then you get power from that. And then there's the internal power. And so we want to talk about how it is that we access the power that is internally within us. Do you want to, Thorn, give us your thoughts on that to begin?
Sure. Um, like Amanda said, I've been practicing for 26 years. And one of the benefits to practicing for that long is you do start to see long-term patterns that you don't necessarily get to see over just a 5-year period or even a 10-year period. A lot of the people I've been looking after in my office, I've been seeing sometimes continuously, sometimes on and off over literally decades at this point. And one of the things that's become especially clear to me over the last few years, I would say, is really being able to recognize the difference in outcomes when people are focused on, like Amanda said, that circumstantial power or looking to get power from outside, as opposed to focusing on both accessing but also increasing that power from within. I like to refer that as capacity. Um, and so the pattern I've noticed, because in the past I kind of felt that when we focused on the outside, there wasn't necessarily anything wrong or detrimental about that. It was kind of a neutral. And when we focus on the inside, that's when we really have the potential to create something that never existed before. What's become very clear to me more recently is that the more we focus on that external circumstantial power, the worse our outcomes are going to be long term. It might give us a short hit, it might give us a short benefit, but if you look at a person over the long term, the more they're focused on the outside and the less they're focused on the inside, things will decline over a period of time, as opposed to the people that focus internally. You'll see them continue to grow and become wiser and develop new abilities and new strategies over a lifetime. So even though, we all age and there's certain things that happen inevitably with that, but I have a lot of people I see in my office who have been around for a lot of years, and the richness and the quality of their life really does continue to get better and better and better year after year.
Can you give us an example or some examples of circumstantial power, just so people can get an idea versus accessing our own internal power?
Sure. So external power, and power is probably not even the right word. I
Yep.
think it's more looking for external resources as opposed to building internal resourcefulness. So when we're constantly looking to the outside, we're actually distracting ourselves from what we could be creating on the inside. So, for example, we're chiropractors, someone has back pain. A way to access external resources would be to take, say, a painkiller. In the big picture, not a terribly negative thing. However, when we do that over and over and over again, we're actually missing out on the opportunity to build what we need to do inside to have the capacity so that, say, back pain, for example, is actually irrelevant at that point. When we focus internally, we can actually take our problems and turn them into it's an opportunity to create something new, an opportunity to create a positive. when we focus to the outside, we lose that opportunity completely. So I don't know if that's a clear example or not, but
Yeah, no, I see that. And that's a good distinction between resources and resourcefulness that we get internally.
yeah, crucial distinction.
One thing I like to say with the nervous system is like right now, if we're focusing on external, there's a lot of rush, right? Especially, we're here on the internet, but now with the AI and the chat GBT and everything, you can just get everything in a second. I can write my blog, I can do all this. I either spend an hour writing it every week or I can do it in 20 seconds,
Right.
right? But the resourcefulness comes from when I'm sitting there for an hour thinking about what I want to say, contemplating what I want to say and how to say it versus inputting that some of that information and say, okay, just write me a blog and then post it.
Yeah. Yeah, if something outside of us does it, we don't get the richness and the learning and the wisdom that comes from creating it.
Yeah, agreed. So talk to me about capacity. What does that mean for you?
So to me, capacity is really simple. Capacity is our ability to engage in the world. It's our ability to have stresses, pressure, challenges put upon us and come out the other side not only okay, but actually better than we were before. So you can have two different people faced with the same stresses, the same challenge. Someone with capacity will actually create something great. They're going to grow through that challenge. Someone who doesn't have enough capacity, they're going to have to become smaller or crash as a result of that. And that capacity is physical, right? So you have two people doing the same physical activity. One person gets stronger, the other person starts to break down. It could be emotional capacity. It could be mental capacity, just capacity to live our lives. And I guess where we come in as chiropractors and the type of work that we do is, to me, our capacity is determined by the efficiency and the capacity of our nervous system, because it's the nervous system that takes in the information from the outside and then creates a response.
Sure. And how do you feel like trauma or different experiences that a big trauma or little trauma in the past affects our capacity in the moment now?
I think it depends on what our capacity is when trauma happens, right?
Yeah,
Again, you can have someone who had a horrendously traumatic childhood, and as a result of that, they create something amazing because they don't want other people to experience the same thing. Other people, if they don't have the capacity, and it's not their fault, but these things happen in different situations, it completely destroys their life. And then at that point, they have to build it from the ground up. So for me, when I'm working with people, one of the greatest things I see, one of the things I find the most fulfilling is to see people build their capacity to a point where they can have something terrible happen in their lives and they don't just survive it, they actually thrive as a result of it.
I can see how it's easy to see how we build physical capacity, right? Thorne's a weightlifter. So as you increase the weight, you build more physical capacity to hold more weight, right? To lift more weight.
As long as I don't surpass my capacity for that.
Yes.
Yeah.
As
And,
long as you
and
don't
once you're
surpass.
in your 50s, that gets a little trickier.
For sure. There's a limit, but you can grow within that limit.
That's right. The whole idea is to intelligently increase the challenge so that your capacity goes along with it.
Yeah. And so when I see emotional capacity, let's say you have a certain range of emotions that you feel at a certain amount of time, right? Like happy, happy, sad, happy, sad. Everything that happens to you, you feel those two ranges, happy, or you respond with happy, sad. But if you
Yeah, I'm
in
a guy, so I only know happy and sad. There's nothing.
so only happy and sad. But if we increase the amount of emotions that you feel, that would give you a wider range, right? So that would be more capacity, emotional capacity.
That's right. Yeah. And to be able to be present with other people's wider range of emotion also.
Right. And in feeling more for like having an increased ability to feel more emotions with you would probably in turn be able to sit with other emotions with others, right?
Exactly.
Okay. How about mental capacity? How would you describe that?
Well, you were talking about with, technology and things like that. There's so many things coming at us. There's so many places where our attention can go. Um, and it can be overwhelming for a lot of people. I know I get overwhelmed by that on a fairly regular basis. Um, to me, as we increase our capacity, two things. We can take more things in and be able to integrate it so that it's not overwhelming. So we can take pieces of this and pieces of that and create something with it. Um, so I think that's the first part of it. The second part of it, it was in my brain just a second ago, and it was really brilliant. So let me see if I can find it. Um, no, the second part of it is being able to filter out what's valuable and what's not, right? So we can take all these different, say, media coming at us, and when we have a greater capacity, our discernment's going to be finer. So we can say, oh, this is not valuable to me. I'm going to put that aside. I'm going to put my focus into this, as opposed to it just being a bombardment of stuff that we need to shut off from.
For yourself, what have been some of the most useful ways for you to increase some of your capacity, like whether that be through weightlifting physically or emotionally or mentally?
Well, I guess the easy answer is getting care, getting
Sure.
network care. Um, but I'm not gonna default to that. Um, so I think it's being willing to challenge myself. So whether it be go into the gym and push myself beyond where maybe I thought I could go so I can build that up. For me, especially in the mentally emotional realm, it's being creative. So if I need to create an article, if I need to create a workshop, um, that pushes me beyond, I guess, my comfort zone. And I know every time I do that, my capacity gets greater. The next time it'll be easier to produce the same quality of work and then hopefully be able to push that to the next thing. So I think it's really about being not comfortable, being willing to just push your limits, whether it's physically, whether it's emotionally, whether it's mentally.
No, I agree with that. It is the challenge of trying something new or putting yourself in a new environment. The last couple years, I've been learning jujitsu, and that has pushed me beyond. I'm still terrified to go to class every single time, but every time I overcome that, there's an increased capacity.
Yeah. I can't remember the name of the place in the brain, but there's a part of our brain that's associated with that. And when we do things that we find difficult and not necessarily pleasurable, but we know it's good for us, we actually start to grow that area of our brain and we get better and better and better at it. So the people that you see who are really good at doing that, it's a habit that they've built in, and it actually creates different hardware in their brain to allow them to do that.
Yeah, I could see different neurons forming because you're trying something obviously new, but even challenging yourself to grow out of the current model that you see the world with your
Yeah, and
thinking.
one of the keys with that is actually doing things you don't necessarily want to do. So when you get in that cold shower that you never want to do, you're actually building that part of the brain to make it stronger and stronger.
Well, I'll tell myself that next year when I do my taxes.
There you go.
Okay, that is good. I like that. Um, for you, for somebody getting started then, because you already push yourself and grow outside of that. How about somebody who's like, this terrifies me, or this is something that's super scary for me? How would I start?
So first of all, if you're scared, that's great. The way to do is just start really, really small. So it doesn't have to be, it can be something that seems to be trivial. You're literally just look at it like you're building a muscle. So it's someone who's never been to the gym before. You're not going to go in and do a 4 hour workout and a training session with a bunch of, complicated technical moves. You just get your butt to the gym and you get on the treadmill for 15 minutes. And if that's more than you've done before, then that's great. You're building that muscle. I think a great way is to learn a skill that's not too scary. Like pick up a musical instrument, or if you've maybe played an instrument before and you haven't done it in 20 years, just pick it up again. There's all kinds of things online now, or like I've been, I've owned a guitar since I was about 14 years old, and I definitely don't call myself a guitar player. Um, but I, literally just play around with it and never got past a certain point. And so I recently like subscribed to these online lessons, and it's like 10, 15 minutes a day, but that's part of what I'm doing to push my limits a little bit as well. So it doesn't have to, it can be something really fun. It doesn't have to be anything profound. You can just start small and go from there.
When do you think, like, let's say that habit that you keep going doing over and over again becomes part of your identity, like becomes part of who you are?
Yeah. Yeah, like I am a weightlifter.
Yeah.
So to me, it's not like, oh, am I going to go to the gym this week? It just happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember once a patient was, because I had been running for consistently for a while, and they're like, "So you're a runner?" I'm like, "No, no, no, no. I'm not a runner." And they're like, "But you just said you run 5 kilometers like 3 times a week. That means you're a runner." I'm like, no, still not a runner. But eventually I was like, "Oh, I guess I must be a runner if I actually run." And I do it
Yeah,
often.
my wife actually just went through that. She's been running for the last few years, and I think she's finally admitted that at this point she is now a runner.
Tell Beth that I completely understand because I didn't know
And
I was a runner.
she's actually really good at it. She one of her best friends has been a long time runner, and she runs with some pretty high level people, and Beth is literally crushing a bunch of them now. So, and
How
she doesn't care.
yeah, I run like a turtle, so doesn't bother me either. How does chronic stress like disconnect us from our intuition or our confidence or our ability to tap into our power?
So chronic stress, yeah. So I think again, to go back to the concept of capacity, when our capacity is diminished, that's when those everyday stresses can become a chronic stress because it's too much for us to deal with. So it does a couple things. So it just from a physiologic standpoint, it will literally shut down the parts of our brain that make us human. So the big human frontal lobes of the brain that allow us to do what humans do. Literally, we know when we're in chronic stress, those parts of the brain don't get as much blood flow. So we start to live less of an existence because we don't have access to those higher levels of the brain. Um, One thing I was going to bring up earlier is what we call the upper mental intelligence. So in the network spinal world, we talk about these different intelligences. And the upper mental intelligence, as opposed to the lower mental, whereas lower mental just allows us to fit in and follow rules and do this or do that. The upper mental intelligence is what actually observes. So the upper mental intelligence can observe how we're operating in the world and determine, is this the best that I can do? And very often people who been under chronic stress, they have very little access to that part of the brain. So they're just in it. They're just reacting constantly because they can't observe what's actually happening from a third person perspective. And that's where I think the work that we do can be so valuable to take someone who's maybe been like that for years and years and years. And then once there's enough energy in the system, once the nervous system can calm down even just a little bit, they'll start to have glimpses of, oh, wait a minute, there's another way. Life doesn't have to be like this. And that's when they can start to take the steps to increase their capacity. And, there's a million different ways to do that. I think the care we provide is one of the best ways, but it's definitely not the only way. And that's when you'll see people start to, control is probably not the right word, but they really start to take accountability for everything they're doing in their life. And then you see the capacity build up, and then that's how they get out of that pattern that sometimes is there for decades for some people. Most of our world operates from that place.
Yeah,
It's
for
very
sure.
rare to see somebody operating from an upper mental perspective where they're actually able to observe their behavior in the world and determine if it's absolutely the best or not.
There's a big gap between the lower mental, which Thorne was talking about the rules and everything, versus the upper mental about the observer, because it requires you to take certain responsibility, right? It's like, I am the one. I am the one who and put myself here, or like I am the one who made these decisions. I am the one. And because when you take responsibility as you are the one, then you also have the ability to change that. But without taking responsibility, it's that external power that says, oh, it's their fault, or it's that happened over there. And so you can't access your internal power if it's from the external.
Yeah, because when we're stuck in the lower mind, you literally don't think there's any other possibilities. You can't see other possibilities. So when that upper mental kicks in, now all of a sudden things get exciting because yeah, you're taking responsibility, but you're also like not only seeing the potential, but you know that there's more out there and you know that you can do something about it and make a change.
When do you think because we're talking, there's different energetic intelligences as Thorin's talking about, but when do you think the shift happens between like from the amygdala, the fight flight, to the upper cortices of the brain for intuition, logic, all the things creativity that we want to access so that we can tap into the intuition part? Do you
So
know?
I don't understand the question totally.
Do you know when, in terms of the different energetic intelligences that we get out of, let's say, the fight or flight or the sympathetic nervous system and go into the parasympathetic?
I think maybe late in lower mental going into upper mental, we start to see a glimpse of it. Um, I think until we can really move into what we would call advanced care or into being able to tap into that soul intelligence, that's really really comes alive. Yeah, because that's when we see when we're operating with the upper mental, it's still we're making changes, we're making progress, but it's still work. When we're able to tap into inspiration, now it's like we're pulled or guided as opposed to be pushing. I think a good analogy would be we can be slogging through a stream against the current and working really hard and slowly getting where it is that we need to go. But it's not until we start to move with the current and be pulled along by it that we really make rapid, profound change.
And for those of you that are here live, if you wanted to ask questions, remember that the chat box is always open, or if you want to raise your hand, you can do that and take yourself off mute, and you can ask questions as well if you have any. I also know some of you are driving because somebody told me they would be. So please do not ask a
Do
question if
not
you
enter
are
the chat.
if you are driving. Do not enter the chat. Okay.
I'm going to jump in.
Yeah, for sure, Michelle.
Let's hear
Um,
it.
Hi. Okay, it all sounds great on the intellectual level. So, and obviously the two of you are doing, but I call it like you're doing more the network type whatever we want to call it,
Sure.
not traditional or not conventional chiropractic. I guess my question is, I guess as someone who's been carrying complex PTSD for a number of years, I go in and out, right? And I think that what's important to me is to know that I have my own tools, right? That I don't just need to run to
Right.
Amanda or to Thorin or somebody and go, okay, bail me out again. Okay, bail me out, help me, help me, help me. Which of course is what you were referring to early on as the inner resources, right? So I mean, for me, I am always interested in the tools you offer your patients slash clients that they can take away as tools in their tool bag
Mhm.
or that ongoing internal shift from that hypervigilant sympathetic nervous system overdrive, the constant chronic stress scene to the, gradual, more solidified, more focused on parasympathetic internal safety mechanisms and nervous system function. So what tools are you offering your patients?
So I'll speak for myself first, and then Amanda can jump in. So in my office, the way it's set up, so in addition to like the visits with me, we'll put that aside for now. Um, we do teach what's called somato-respiratory integration exercises to everybody that comes into the office. So that goes along with the care. And essentially what they do is they help to build one somatic awareness, so body awareness at a very subtle level. So they're focusing on their breath, they're focusing on the movement, they're focusing on the energy that's moving through their body. So that's sort of a staple. Um, I also provide regular workshops where we teach some of those strategies as well. So our like the introductory workshop that everybody comes to, we essentially just teach I don't know if you're familiar with heart math. but we teach the heart math, breathing interventions to help to increase heart rate variability and coherence. And then I
Okay.
also do each month throughout the year, and we kind of repeat year after year so people can get repeated exposure to it. Where we're teaching, some of them are very conceptual and some of them are more practical, but we're teaching people, one, how to recognize when they're going into that state, and then ways to move beyond it and ways to focus. Because our culture is so focused on just like surface level symptom treatment, we're teaching people how they can start to shift the focus in their life into making progress and transforming and awakening and doing all those things as well. So that's how we do it in my office. And I'm often, just on a day-to-day visit basis, having conversations with people that maybe stretch them a little bit beyond just how can we help your back feel better today, or how can you just feel less stressed today.
I
One of
didn't quite, sorry, sorry, can I just get you to repeat that last thing because I wasn't quite catching. What did you just say,
what
the
did
last line?
I just say?
You said you help your clients to focus on something, and I wasn't quite sure what they were saying.
So instead of just focusing on surface level secondary condition management, how they can
Right.
focus more on creating progress and transforming and awakening. And there was something you said earlier that I thought was really great about how you dip in and out, but you're aware of that. So to me, that's that upper mental observer being able to come in and take accountability. So a great exercise I do with a lot of people in my office, and it's usually involving how they're feeling physically, but not always, is when you can notice that shift from this is me feeling good, this is me feeling less than good, and as precisely as possible, notice the different anchors to feeling good and feeling not so good.
Hmm.
So that, okay, I'm feeling fantastic today. This is how I'm breathing. This is how I'm moving. This is what my posture is looking like. This is what I'm focusing on. These are the emotions I'm feeling. This is what's going on around me. As opposed to, okay, here's what I'm feeling bad. I also want to notice, how am I moving? How am I breathing? What does my posture look like? What am I focusing on? What am I thinking about? What's going on around me? And the more clear we can observe those two pictures, now starts to give us the ability to choose to shift subtle things. So if we wake up in the morning, oh, I feel terrible. Okay, maybe if I shift my breathing pattern and my posture and start focusing on this instead of that, now I can start to consciously move myself to the state that I want to be in.
Right.
So when
The
we have that
the
shift,
consciousness is, yeah,
so yeah,
a
when we
big
have that
piece.
shift either from good to bad or from bad to good, it's a great opportunity to paint a clearer picture of what those two things look like for you.
Yeah. It's always harder when you're feeling bad and then you have
Of
to really work
course.
at it
Yeah, of
and
course.
sort of regroup around. Yeah. And I mean, I think what you were touching on earlier, one of you was that whole concept of building resilience, which comes from dipping in. I mean, I just was just going to
Yeah.
add that from my own personal experience, like the dipping in does not happen for me when I'm really frozen in my trauma, in that, that activated state.
Yeah.
In that activated state, I am not going to take a risk. I have to
Right.
literally get myself settled enough to say, I am safe enough to take a risk. So, I mean, it's kind of like, so when we're vulnerable to that, significant activation, then it's kind of like the first set of tools is the tools to pull me down into more of a
Yep.
parasympathetic state, and then so that I can increase my awareness, and then I can notice that I have another set of tools, and that at some point I'm safe and I'm okay to take the next risk to build up the resilience, which will reduce the chances of me going back into this activated state a little more. So it's sort of like an interesting kind of dialect. I call it a dialectic, a back and forth.
Yeah, for sure,
I
Michelle.
think
Thank
that's
you
such
for
a
sharing that.
I think that's such a profound point you made as well, is that a lot of people, as soon as they start to feel a little bit uncomfortable, they try to do anything to get out of it. Whereas what I'm hearing from you is that you've learned how to actually go into it a bit and experience it and know what you need. And that gives you the time and the space to then move up out of it. But if you were just to run away from the bad feeling every time it showed up, you wouldn't be able to do that. So I think
Right.
that's super, super important.
Yeah, I was gonna actually say the exact same thing because there's the difference between the emotion, which lasts short periods of time, right? Seconds to minutes, versus the state of it, which is can be on and on and on, right? We have these things called feeling thoughts, right? You have so many thoughts in your day and you don't remember every single one of them. But the ones that you remember is because you have a thought and then you have a feeling associated with that thought, right? So you feel a thought, a feeling thought. And then sometimes we get stuck in a state by having the same thoughts and then going over and over and over with the emotion. And then we try and say, okay, I don't want to feel this or I don't want to experience it. But if you had fully just experienced the short motion for what it is, then it moves through you and it passes through you, right? Emotion is energy in motion. And so then you don't get stuck in that state. And Michelle, what you were saying with the tools that you're using is we don't want to use the tools like breath work, yoga, like hugging trees, going out in nature, whatever it is, the tools that you have, we don't want to use them so that we don't feel. We want to feel and fully process the emotion. And then you can use some of the tools as you were talking about. So that's a great point, Michelle.
That was great.
Awesome. So let's talk a bit about the gap between, oh, wait, Charles has a question. Okay, come on out, Charles. I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I I'm struggling. I've been struggling for a long time about this external power thing. And to me, the way it shows up is for me to communicate my boundaries, I I have to resort on vocal, expression. If I stay quiet, I stay calm, relaxed, etc. People do not take me like seriously. And so the only way for me to get to the point of these are my boundaries, don't trespass them, the vocal and nowadays like it seems like everywhere one goes, if you elevate the tone of your voice, it becomes, an act of violence. Would you comment on that, please? Thank you.
So I'll go ahead.
Go ahead.
So um, I have a question though, Charles. So are you interpreting you having to vocalize your boundaries as that accessing internal power or external power?
I i don't know. I mean, like, I want to make clear to people that I have reasons for raising concerns,
Yeah.
and that those boundaries need to be, addressed. And oftentimes, like, for instance, a few years back, I was taking care of my mother, and the caretakers or the orderly people would not see that they were like making, very significant mistakes in how they were handling her. And it
Uh-huh.
became, like, wow, this is like people are not trained, and there is no way, I will come across to make them understand other than, like, look at them and give them the eyes, so to speak.
So to me, that sounds like you accessing internal power to me, where you see something that needs to be addressed. And to me, it sounds like you stepping up and taking responsibility for the situation and doing what has to be done.
Yeah, and what I'm finding more and more is, people do not take my quote unquote suggestion or advice or whatever lightly. They feel like they're threatened in terms of, like, I'm taking responsibility for what's happening, and in response, like, they don't appreciate, the fact that they've been displaced in their position of authority or what have you.
Right. That sounds like a them problem, not a you problem.
I was
And
gonna say that too.
and I think
Finish
there's
your
something, I think there is something there culturally that you're touching on, is that when you show up in your power, what we would call the season of transform, for people who are not in that season, it can be offensive to them. So there's a time to do it with, strength and conviction, depending on the situation. So like Amanda could probably share the same experience in our offices. Most people come into us not in that powered state. They don't come to us in that transformed state. They come in to see us in Discover. And the art of that, and this applies to, it could be with your family, it could be with people you're dealing with on a daily basis, is being able to meet them where they're at and recognize that, but then also leading them to something greater. Now, in the case of your mother, and when it's literally a health, life and death possibly situation, um, subtleties kind of go out the window and you just do what you need to do in the moment.
Okay.
And also remember that the rest of the world doesn't want to take accountability. Not a lot of people want to take responsibility for their part in what's going on. And so when you encounter people in a different stage, let's say, of consciousness than you are, then you are going to trigger people. And the thing to remember is that you're not responsible for their triggers.
Yeah, that helps. Thanks.
What drives a lot of people when they're not accessing that transform is they don't want anything to be their fault. And when you come in with accountability, that's how they'll perceive it sometimes.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Okay. Do you, Thorn, have any closing remarks that you would like to say?
Oh, I wrote some stuff down. I don't know if I've talked about it already. Let me check my brilliant.
Yeah.
Check my brilliant notes. Yeah, so I think tied into everything we've been talking about, when it comes to capacity, I see there's kind of two layers to increasing that capacity. So the first one is to sort of remove the obstacles to us getting there. So removing the obstructions to us getting there. So that could be negative habits that we have that shut down our capacity, things that are probably obvious to a lot of us. I know I have some that I could definitely improve on. But then once we have that more or less handled, um, then we want to really consciously choose things that's going to increase the capacity over a period of time. So I think there's two different ways of looking at it. When we see people in our office, often the first part of care is just sort of calming the system down and removing those obstructions. And then once we have that to a sort of base level where we know the person's functioning at a higher level, then we can start to add strategies to build that over a period of time. So I think when you're looking at capacity, you want to look at both of those things at the same time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because we want to obviously expand somebody's capacity, but there's also the part where you could remove areas where they're taking up energy in the body that's not efficient, right? Or that can be used for something else. Like even if you look at a muscle that has a lot of tension in it, it requires energy in order to hold the tension there. And so energy that could be used for healing, for creativity, for, whatever internal power you want to access is being tied up in the tension that's stored in, let's say, that muscle. And so once that's released or freed, you have more energy already available to you in the system without even having to increase the capacity on the other end at all.
Yeah, I think one of the ways you know that you're being successful at increasing that capacity is that when challenges come along, and it could be something as simple as physical pain, you actually start to see it as an opportunity. So you don't like it. Like nobody likes pain, nobody likes challenge, nobody likes stress. But there's a part of you that kind of goes, yes, I'm about to learn something here. I'm about to get better. That's how you know the capacity is increasing to a point where you can really start to make huge transformation in your life.
What I notice in my practice is when a patient tells me that the things that they used to bother them no longer bother them. So how they would react in a certain situation. So let's say, they get road rage and they're cut off in traffic and they used to yell and scream and do whatever and talk about it for, the next week. Now, if the same thing happens, they're just irritated or they're annoyed. or even if it only bothers them for one day. So you went from something bothering you for a week to one day. So you just collapsed the timeline of a week and you got 6 days back in your life where you could change the energy and use it for something else.
One of
Yep.
the ways I know where my capacity is at in the office is when I have a problem patient come in who's a pain in my butt in one way or the other. If my capacity is low, I'm like, oh God, not again. Here we go. If my capacity is high, I get excited because I know we're gonna have a real opportunity to make a difference in that person's life. And I can tell you from experience that some of the patients in my office who have been the biggest challenge and the biggest pain in the butt and the people I wished wouldn't show up for their appointments, very often I end up having the deepest relationship and the deepest connection with those people. Because when you have the capacity to stay present with someone when they're really having a hard time, it's priceless. There's nothing like it.
I'm smiling because my favorite patients are the ones that they come in for initial visit, they're standing in the corner, their arms are crossed, and they're like, my significant other made me come. I'm
Yeah.
only here because someone made me do it.
Mm.
Those are my favorite.
I was just going to jump in and just
Yeah.
share like one of the things that I think you're sharing it. I concretized it many years ago, which is the stress container. So if you're not flowing energetically, if you've got all these barriers and blocks, that stress container is getting more and more and more full till it's overflowing. And so we're not going to take on anything that is perceived as a risk or an additional stress when we're already overflowing. And what the work that you two are doing and that the tools that we can learn and incorporate into our lives allow us to do is to flow our energy more, which then allows us more capacity and the ability to just to take on new and different and creative things. So I mean, I think that's, I mean, again, it's about energy flowing, right? And there's no way in hell that I will just take on a risk when my stress container is starting to overflow and I'm not flowing. So I mean, anyhow, thanks for your great work. That's what I really wanted to say.
And I think you make a great point too, that Michelle, that when we're like, I go there too. When we're in that state, it's okay. Like we don't have to be growing and transforming all the time. It's okay to go smaller for a period of time. And I think when we have that awareness, which you clearly do, or you wouldn't be able to articulate it that well, is that just being able to notice when that's the reality and being okay to be in that state for a while. We don't want to stay there forever, but it's okay when it happens.
And what you both talk about is the developing awareness, which then allows us to start thinking about other ways and other
Yeah,
decisions and other
yeah,
actions. Yeah.
exactly. Because when we can acknowledge where we are, even when we don't like it, now you have potential to go someplace else. If we don't acknowledge where we are, then we're just floating around in space.
Yeah. And one of the gifts I'm gonna say of Amanda, because she's over there, it doesn't matter. Wherever you are on this damn screen, is compassion, right? So that's a huge gift that, you give, right? Compassion, which allows then the safety to be able to then take the risks of letting some of that distress out too. So, I mean, that's the soft part, right? And we're all learning that.
I agree. She's pretty good at that.
Yeah, I'm still learning.
Increasing my capacity for it.
I've got a long ways to go.
All right. Does anyone else have any questions or comments that they would like to bring up? Okay, good. Well, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you, Thorn, for being our special guest. Next month is going to be a challenge. So usually that involves a certain amount of days. Last year, this challenge is called the Catalyst, is a 21-day challenge. And so I'll be doing the audio recordings for 21 days over the challenge. So it will not be the masterclass online like it normally is, but it'll all be uploaded onto the website, my website, so that you can listen to the daily doses of healing on there. Okay. So next month we will be seeing you, or you'll be hearing my voice if you're coming to the challenge. If not, I will see you in 2 months here in the space so that we can have our next masterclass. Thank you, everybody. And
Thank you, everyone. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you so much.
bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.